Happy Women's History Month.
When I have a worry-filled mind, I like to wander outside. No telling what we might find. Birds calling, worms crawling, leaves falling down from above. Oh, I plant my feet on the ground. I keep my head in the clouds. I let my feelings out loud. I hear joy calling, fear crawling, tears falling down out of love.
Hi, friends. I'm so glad you're here. If you don't already know, my name is Mrs. A, and I'm really grateful that you decided to join me today. You may already know that we always start off with a feelings or a zones check in, and that is because it's important for us to understand our brains and our bodies, figure out how we're feeling, share or communicate those feelings, and understand what we need. What we need in order to do our job that moment, or what we need in order to feel comfortable. And so today I'd like us to talk about the zones of regulation. The zones of regulation are just a helpful tool for us to use to figure out how we're feeling and communicate it with others, as well as maybe understand what types of strategies or what types of things we need to try to help us feel more settled or more comfortable or clear-headed. So let me tell you about the zones. The red zone means that you are feeling out of control. Maybe you're really overwhelmed. Your brain might feel like it's about to explode. Your body might feel hot. Your movements might be really big. Your voice might be really loud. The yellow zone means you're starting to lose control. Your thoughts might be a little confused. Maybe you're feeling distracted or nervous or worried about something. You may be a little unsure, not able to think clearly. The green zone means that you're feeling really calm in your brain and your body. You're feeling settled or comfortable. You're able to think clearly. The blue zone means that you're moving a bit slowly. Maybe you're feeling sad or lonely. Maybe you're feeling tired or a little sick. And so there are no good zones or bad zones. We all experience all of those different things from time to time. And so I'd like you to take a moment right now and think about the zone you're in, just this moment. Maybe you were in a different zone before. You may experience a different feeling or zone later. That's okay. All I want you to do is think about now. Are you feeling really tired, slow moving? Then you're in the blue zone. Are you feeling really comfortable, kind of at peace with your body? Then you're in the green zone. Are you feeling like you're losing control, getting a little confused or frustrated? Then you're in the yellow zone. Or are you feeling really overwhelmed, like you've lost control? Then you're in the red zone. Will you say your color zone out loud? Thanks for sharing. I am feeling in the blue zone right now. I'm a little bit tired, a little bit sick, and so I just feel like my body's moving a bit slowly. Thanks for sharing your zone with me and with the people around you. Remember, it's really important that we practice this every day. It could even be a few times a day to help our brains and body get more used to it and comfortable with it, and help us communicate or share that with the people around us so they can learn more about us and they can learn how maybe we need some space or when we might be feeling a certain way or how they can act. And it's really helpful that we listen to them when they share their feelings too. Now, we've talked about a couple different ways that we can move from zone to zone. We practice mindfulness together every time I share a lesson. I've shared some read alouds and some stories about different feelings and emotions that can help us. And we've also talked about how moving our body can help us move from zone to zone. Sometimes when we feel like we're in the yellow zone and losing control, if we take a walk or if we get a sip of water, we practice some deep breathing, we might start to move toward the green zone and feel a bit more calm or in control. And so we're going to practice moving our bodies together today, and we're going to do that to the date. And as I said, it is Women's History Month, so it's a brand new month, and it is the third month in our year. Do you know what the name of that month is? March, yes. And I want to just pause for a second and celebrate that it's March, because maybe you have a birthday in March, or maybe someone you know and love celebrates a birthday in March. If that's you or someone you know, I just want to wish you a happy, happy birthday. Happy birthday to all my friends who celebrate their birthdays in March. I'm excited for you to be in your birthday month, and I hope you have a wonderful, joyous time celebrating you. Now, like I said, it is the third month, and today for me, it's the second day in March. It may be a different day for you. You can always change the numbers if you need. And for our year, we have 22 to represent 2022. And so we're going to check in with Fig and see what move they're showing us, make some observations, maybe some guesses, and then we'll get started moving our bodies. It looks like Fig is really excited that it is March as well. They have their feet off the ground, they have their hands up high. What do you think they're doing? Some of you may know. We'll talk about Fig's move in just a minute, but first we have 3 things to do. The 3 things I'd like us to do are shoulder rolls. So we'll loosen up our shoulders. You can move your shoulders backward or forward, or take turns and go one direction and then the other, whatever you would like to do. And you can do these sitting or standing, so they're really accessible for most friends. Let's count by ones and do 3 shoulder rolls. Ready? 1, 2, 3. So, now let's check in with Fig and see what they were showing us. Fig, what are you showing us? Oh, jumps. You are really excited about March. Thanks, Fig. Okay, we have 2 jumps to do, and you may already know 2 is an even number because I can share it equally. And so we are going to count by 2s. That means we will not say 1 or any of the odd numbers. We'll just say the even ones. Let's do 2 jumps, counting by 2. Ready? 2! And this last move is going to require us to do a lot of work because we have 22 of them. But before we get started on it, I wanted to ask you, do you think 22 is an even or odd number? I'll give you a hint. We only need to worry about this number, the number in the ones place, and that is a 2, just like this. And so 2 is even, which means 22 is even. So we're going to get some practice counting by 2s today, all the way up to 22. And what we're going to do is take our hand and touch our opposite foot. You can do this sitting or standing, and we'll take turns with each side. So my right hand will touch my left foot, and then my left hand will touch my right foot. And like I said, we'll count all the way up to 22, counting by 2s. Do your best, and if you get stumped, that's okay. You can just listen to me and I'll help you. Ready? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Well done. Oh, you can settle back into your seat and listen for a bell, because anytime we exercise together, I like to give us a moment to cool down and settle back in. This helps slow our heart rate. It helps cool our body. And so when you hear a bell, you can breathe in big and slowly let that air out. Wonderful work. And there's another example of those mindfulness tools that you can use if you want to move from one zone to another. Just taking a moment to breathe. If you don't have a bell, that's okay. You can imagine one in your head. Or you can think of your favorite way to take a big breath, like blowing up a balloon or blowing out a candle. All of these are really helpful tools that we can keep in our tool belt whenever we feel like we're losing control or need a minute to refocus or calm down. Now, you've heard me mention a few times that it is Women's History Month, and I'm really excited to share about some really special women with you and support some women who are doing incredible things. And one small way you can support me for Women's History Month is to hit that red subscribe button below. It always makes me do a little happy dance when I see that a new friend or family has subscribed to my channel. And so you can go ahead and hit that red button and let me know that you support me this month. Now, let's jump into our message and hear more about what we'll be reading and learning about today. Dear delightfully diverse friends, all of us have women to thank for being here on Earth. Think about it. Our moms, their moms, their moms' moms, the list goes on. Our ancestors, people who came before us, literally brought us into the world, and we wouldn't be here without them. It's all quite magical to think about, isn't it? While not all women want to bring people into the world, they all do have the power to do incredible things, big and small. Today, to kick off Women's History Month, we're going to take a look at some strong, creative, and determined women who have done remarkable things. Yay! Love, Mrs. A. Maybe you noticed in this message some of the alliterations or onomatopoeias I've hit. If you're not sure what an alliteration or onomatopoeia is, that's okay. You can check out any of my other videos and I'll tell you a bit more about them. But they are really helpful ways that we can practice looking for letters or learning new words or listening for sounds. And so we are going to talk about some incredible women today and really all month. And I'm excited to share these books with you because they are really cool collections of women's stories and experiences. So they're not a typical storybook. We won't be reading the whole thing together. And in fact, one page might not be connected to the next. But we're going to hear about some really, really cool people and how they have contributed or how they are contributing to our world. So first is this book called Rebel Girls Explore. And it is by Francesca Cavallo and Elena Falvilli. And this book is really, really cool because these two women wrote it, but there are a bunch of different artists who drew the pictures in this book. And I want to start off just briefly at the table of contents to show you how many different women are highlighted in here. And then in the back, there are activities and quizzes and interviews and workshops and a ton more to learn. We are going to start right here with Jessica Watson, who is a sailor, and she was born in Australia on May 18th, 1993. So she's pretty young. Once upon a time, there was a girl called Jessica who was afraid of water. One summer morning, Jessica was playing with her sister and cousins by the pool. At one point, the other children lined up on the side and got ready to jump in together, holding hands. Jessica's mom watched from the window to make sure Jessica was okay. She expected Jessica to step back from the edge, but she was amazed to see her daughter step forward with the others. 1, 2, 3, splash! All the kids landed in the water, shouting and laughing. From that day on, Jessica started loving the water. She joined a sailing club and decided to sail around the world on her own without stopping. She painted her boat bright pink and christened her Ella's Pink Lady. She packed the boat with steak and kidney pies, potatoes, cans and cans of beans, 150 bottles of milk, and lots of water, and set sail from Sydney Harbour in Australia. She was just 16 years old. All on her own, Jessica sailed onward. She fought against waves as tall as skyscrapers. She woke up to the most beautiful sunrises, spotted blue whales, and watched shooting stars above her boat. 7 months later, she arrived back in Sydney. Thousands of people turned out to greet her. They rolled out a special carpet for her, bright pink, just like her boat. And there's a quote here from Jessica. It says, "You can't change conditions, just the way you deal with them." So while she was out sailing by herself, she was faced with a lot of challenges, but she figured out a way to navigate through those challenges. And it took her 7 months to sail around the world, but she did it. That's pretty incredible. Now, this next person I'd like to share with you is also pretty incredible. And she is another type of explorer, a mountaineer, and her name is Purna Malawath, and she was born in India on June 10th, 2000. So she's a little bit younger than Jessica. Once upon a time, a girl called Purna went on a rock climbing expedition with her classmates. When they arrived at Bangar Rock in southern India, she looked up at the huge cliff that she was supposed to climb. Her legs shook and there were tears in her eyes. "Oh, I'll never make it," she thought. But Purna's teacher, a local police officer, encouraged her. "You can do it," he said. So she tried. When she reached the top, she shouted for joy. "I'm not afraid of anything now," she said. "I can conquer Mount Everest." And she wasn't just saying it. Purna actually wanted to climb the highest mountain in the world. Before setting off for that next adventure, she had to train hard. She built up her stamina playing kabaddi, a sport similar to a high-energy version of tag. She traveled to the high plateaus of northern India in freezing winter, and she climbed to the top of Mount Renock, one of the most challenging peaks in the Himalayas. When she was ready, she joined an expedition to scale Mount Everest. She wasn't at all afraid when she first saw the mighty mountain. "It's not that tall," she said to her coach. "We can do that in one day." Well, it took 52 days to get to the top, but when she reached the summit, Purna, age 13, became the youngest girl ever to make it. Purna went on to climb to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro in Tanzania, but her highest aspiration is to become a police officer, just like the teacher who helped her conquer her fear. And here's a quote from Purna. It says, "I wanted to prove that girls can do anything." What an inspiration. And the last person we'll hear about in this book is Samantha Cristoforetti, and she's an astronaut. She was born in Italy on April 26, 1977. Once upon a time, there was an engineer who brewed coffee in outer space. Her name was Samantha, and she was an astronaut. Samantha had studied mechanical engineering and aeronautics at university. After she graduated, she joined a flight school and finished at the top of her class. Samantha became a fighter pilot in the Italian Air Force, but she wanted to fly even higher. So she applied to the European Space Agency to join its space program. Only 6 pilots out of more than 8,000 applicants were selected. Samantha was one of them. For 2 years, she went through an incredibly hard training program. At an underwater military training camp in Texas, Samantha had to learn how to assemble equipment at the bottom of a pool 4 times deeper than a normal one, how to swim while wearing a spacesuit, and how to fight underwater. She even had to learn how to speak Russian. Once she had mastered all of that, she was ready to go. At the International Space Station, Captain Cristoforetti performed over 200 experiments to study how the human body reacts to long stretches of time spent in zero gravity. In the future, she predicted, the human race will live on multiple planets, so it's important to know what happens to our bodies in outer space. During the mission, Samantha also experimented with different kinds of food. Who would want to live on Mars, she asked, if they could only eat stuff squeezed out of a tube? She was the 3rd European woman to travel to outer space, but the first person to brew coffee there. And Samantha says, "Always remember, if you have to choose between an easy thing and a hard one, The hard ones are usually a lot more fun. I love that little quote and piece of wisdom from Samantha. And I really love this book, Rebel Girls Explore. It's great for everyone, whether you're a boy or a girl or in between. And this book has so many beautiful illustrations. You got to see just a couple samples, but like I said, there are a lot of artists featured in this book, so no portrait looks the same. They're all unique, just like us. Now, this next book is also really beautiful. It is called A Black Woman Did That: 42 Boundary Breaking, Bar Raising, and World Changing Women. It's written by Malika Adero with illustrations by Shantae Timothy. And so one way it's different is that there was one illustrator for this book, and in that one there are several. And also we'll see that this book features Black women. And this book has some Black women in it, but this one is exclusively Black women, so it's special in that way too. First, we'll look at someone who I think is so inspiring. Her name is Monet Davis. Monet Davis found her Black girl magic on the sports field and basketball courts of Philadelphia while hanging out with her older brother and cousins. She had such superb athletic skills that everybody wanted her on her team, and only the best and most confident ever wanted to compete against her. In 2008, when Monet was 7 or 8 years old, a program director at a local recreation center named Steve Bandora saw her play. He said that she was throwing this football in perfect spirals, effortless, and running those tough kids down and tackling them. Impressed, he invited her to come to his team's basketball practice. Steve described in a newspaper article how focused she was when they trained. Right away, he recognized her as a promising athlete. Monet says that playing with boys was intimidating at first. Many of them were physically bigger and stronger, but her love for the sport got her past her fear. By the time she was 10 years old, she excelled as a point guard in basketball, a pitcher, shortstop, and third base person in baseball, and as a midfielder in soccer. She came to the attention of the world in 2014 when, at 13 years old, she became the first African American girl to play in the Little League World Series. She was one of only 2 girls who played in that tournament and was the first girl in Little League World Series history to pitch a shutout. Fans went wild, and people around the world took notice. It was the bottom of the 6th. I knew I had to throw a strike in order to end the game, and as soon as that ball left my hand, I knew that from that day forward, my life would never be the same. And there's a bit more info about Monet here, but I just want to leave you with this quote. She said, "I throw a 70-mile-per-hour ball. That's throwing like a girl." And so I love learning about Monet and how she helps her community and the world here, and how she conquered her fears by playing sports with boys. Even though she was intimidated, even though she thought, oh, this is a little scary, she did it anyway because she is such an impressive athlete. She knew she could do it if she trained and worked hard, just as she has. And so Monet Davis is one of the girls that I wanted to shout out in this book. And this next woman is such an inspiration. Her name is Shirley Chisholm. And in the 1920s, the Caribbean suffered from widespread crop failure and food shortages. And that led to mass migrations of people. So lots of people from the Caribbean islands moved to the United States. And Shirley Chisholm's mother, Ruby, and father, Charles, were part of that migration. Known to each other in Barbados, they reconnected and married in Brooklyn, New York. And that's where they made a home and had Shirley and her 2 sisters. Charles and Ruby worked hard to support their family, but money was still tight. The hours were long and the northern winters were tough for them to get used to. So when Shirley was 3 years old, her parents sent her and her sisters to Barbados to live with their grandmother. There they could play outside all year round in the warm weather and get a great education. After more than 5 years, the family reunited. Shirley finished school in Brooklyn, where she was a good student and a natural-born leader. After graduating, she decided to pursue a career in teaching, one of the few professional paths available to Black women in the 1940s. Working as a school teacher, Shirley noticed that the school system often failed to provide the teachers, textbooks, and facilities that the students truly needed. It became clear to her that politics and money made a difference between a school that received support and a neglected one. She began to volunteer for political organizations like the League of Women Voters and her local Democratic Club in Brooklyn. Shirley loved volunteering, and her natural leadership ability was apparent to the women and men she worked with. Many women admired her courage and willingness to stand up for herself and speak out on behalf of others. Shirley was elected in the New York State Assembly and served from 1965 to 1968. And she went on to run for president years later. And there's so much more to learn about Shirley Chisholm and her hard work here. But I wanted to jump back for just a second because she has a really cool quote too. And she said, "If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair." So if you are ever feeling excluded or not a part of a group or a place where you know you deserve to be, or it's something that you care deeply about, she said if they don't invite you or make space for you, you make space for yourself. Bring your own chair. And so Shirley Chisholm is a real inspiration. Last but not least, I wanted to highlight Faith Ringgold. As a child, Faith Ringgold was often kept home from school because of her asthma, so she passed the time alone by making art. Once she felt better and was back in the company of other children, she still spent her time being creative and making beautiful things. "I was constantly doing art," she said, "but I didn't think of myself as an artist. It was just something I liked to do." Faith might have gotten her artsy side from her mother, a fashion designer who encouraged her daughter to exercise her creativity. Faith also found inspiration in the place where she lived, Harlem, a historic area in New York City known for its African American arts community. Before and during Faith's life, it was the home of composer Duke Ellington, painters Jacob Lawrence and Aaron Douglas, and writer Langston Hughes. Faith grew up near City College of New York. She often watched students walk back and forth from campus, but she didn't notice until she applied to the school herself that the students were all white and male. Supported by taxpayer dollars, the school was an option for any student who could not afford tuition at a private university. She enrolled, but was originally told that she could not major in art because women did not receive art degrees. Eventually, the school decided that as long as she also studied education, she could study art. In 1950, the same year she started at City College, she married musician Robert Earl Wallace, and the pair had 2 daughters, Michelle Faith and Barbara Faith. And so she wanted to study art at a university, and they said, women can't study art. So they made her study education as well as what she wanted to study. And I think that's pretty interesting, that not too long ago, in 1950, women couldn't learn or study whatever they wanted. That makes me pretty upset, but I'm glad that it's changed, at least here in the United States. Though it's still a little tricky for women to do or study the things they want, when they want, and where they want. And that's why it's important we talk about Women's History Month and hear about some of these inspiring women, because there are still things that we might have to fight to do, and there are still some places that we might not be invited or included in. And so it's important that we keep working hard and stay focused on making sure that everyone has equal rights and equal access. And last but not least, I just want to share this book real quick with you. It's called Women in Science, and it's about 50 fearless pioneers who changed the world, written and illustrated by Rachel Ignotowski. And I love this book because what's different about it than these is that one woman wrote it all and illustrated it all. And I'm not going to read these pages to you right now. I'm just going to zoom in on a few. This is one woman who I recently learned about named Hypatia. And she was a mathematician from Greece. And you may know I am Greek, and so this one really connected with me, this page. And there are so many facts and information about her that I really loved learning about Hypatia. This next page is about Mamie Phipps Clark. She was a psychologist and civil rights activist. She fought to make sure that people were treated equally no matter their skin color and no matter what gender they were, male or female or non-binary. And so she was another really inspiring woman to learn about. I hadn't known about her before. And last but not least, Esther Lederberg, a microbiologist. She invented replica plating to study mutations. And this is work that was really helpful in better understanding all of the different viruses and bacteria that are in our world. And so she was a really important woman in science, and a lot of the work she did is still helping us today. And so this book, Women in Science, is so beautifully illustrated and written in such great detail with so many facts and bits of information that you just must grab it along with these others from your library or from your bookstore. You can also check my bookshop link in the description of these videos, where I keep a bunch of books that I talk about in my episodes, so you can check them out and get them from your local bookstore just from clicking a few buttons. To wrap up our time together, we have a mindful moment, and today I thought we could try a yoga pose called Warrior. I'm thinking about how so many of these women have persevered or faced their fears or done something that was really tricky or big or bold or brave. And so they've reminded me of warriors. And warrior has a couple of different ways to do it. But one way is to start by putting your foot out in front of you, nice and straight, and your other foot back. So your legs are spread apart, not too far that you fall, just far enough that you feel steady. And you're going to put your back foot on a little bit of an angle, tilted a little bit. And then put your arms out. Your arm in front of you will be the same side as your foot that's in front of you. And your arm behind will be your opposite arm. And you'll want to bend down a little bit and try to focus your eyes just at your fingertips. And you can do a warrior like this, or you can do it slightly differently by putting your arms up in the air. Whatever is more comfortable for you. I'm going to do a warrior in this position. You go ahead and find a way that's comfortable. And we're going to take 3 big breaths while we're in our warrior pose. Let's do it. Fantastic, my warriors. Thank you for trying that. Take a moment to think about how your body feels. What do you notice about it? Do you feel a little braver or bolder? Are there any feelings or sensations in your arms or legs? How's your brain? Is it clear and focused? Does it have any thoughts running through it? Thanks for noticing those things and sharing them or thinking about them. And thank you so much for being here with me today. Please remember to subscribe and like this video so I can continue to make more. And thank you so much for spending your time with me.